Our top focus on WION at this hour. US President Donald Trump says a deal is in sight to end the dispute over Greenland.
In fact, adding to that, Diksha, President Trump also seemed to back down from his threats to take over Greenland by force and impose tariffs on allies. The softening of tone came after President Trump held talks with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte in Davos. The meeting came hours after President Trump even addressed the World Economic Forum in Davos and demanded immediate talks to discuss the acquisition of Greenland by the United States.
But after meeting Rutte, the US president took to Truth Social and announced a framework deal for the entire Arctic region. He posted that an agreement had been reached to hold discussions to benefit all NATO nations. And in his post, Trump said that he will not impose his proposed tariffs against 8 nations. He also indicated that discussions would include his desire for a Golden Dome missile defense system over the region. And later he told reporters it would also cover critical minerals.
It's a deal that people jumped at. Really fantastic for the USA. Gets everything we wanted, including especially real national security and international security.
How so? Does it still include the United States having ownership of Greenland like you've said you wanted?
It's a long-term deal. It's the ultimate long-term deal. And I think it puts everybody in a really good position, especially as it pertains to security and minerals and everything else.
Earlier addressing Davos for the first time in 6 years, Trump had struck a much harsher tone. Reiterating his desire for Greenland, he had claimed that all he's asking for is a piece of ice that can play a vital role in the world peace and world protection order. Trump also called Denmark ungrateful but appeared to take the threat of military action off the table.
We probably won't get anything unless I decide to use excessive strength and force where we would be, frankly, unstoppable. But I won't do that. Okay? Now everyone's saying, oh, good. That's probably the biggest statement I made, because people thought I would use force. I don't have to use force. I don't want to use force. I won't use force. All the United States is asking for is a place called Greenland.
Rutte said that much work remained on Greenland. He later said that he did not discuss the key issue of Danish sovereignty over Greenland in his meet with Donald Trump.
That issue did not come up anymore in my conversations tonight with the President. We very much focused on what do we need to do to make sure that that huge Arctic region, where change is taking place at the moment, where the Chinese and Russians are more and more active, how we can protect that. That was really the focus of our discussions.
NATO spokesperson Alison Hart said that Denmark, Greenland and the United States will negotiate on ensuring that Russia and China never gain a foothold in Greenland. Denmark welcomed the latest developments, saying Trump has sent positive signals by saying that he would not use military force to seize Greenland. Now, talking about Trump's speech at the forum, the Danish foreign minister also stressed the US president has not backed away from his threat to seize the Arctic territory.
What was quite clear after this speech is that the president's ambition is intact. Of course, it is positive in isolation that it is said that he will not use military force. Of course, that has to be noted.
Meanwhile, the Danish defense minister expressed hope that United States will participate in future NATO exercises in the Arctic.
And for more on this, our correspondent Susan Tehrani has sent us this report from New York. Take a look.
It's going to be good for everybody, says U.S. President Donald Trump as he announced at the World Economic Forum in Davos that the U.S. and NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte had agreed on a framework for a future deal regarding Greenland and the Arctic. And as a result, he has now canceled the previously threatened tariffs on several European allies that were set to take effect on February 1st and escalate in June. The tariff threat topped tied to Trump's push for U.S. influence in Greenland, which Denmark rejects, sparked major EU backlash, including the European Parliament suspending its ratification of a U.S.-EU trade agreement. Trump ruled out a military force to take Greenland and emphasized that his national security concerns are rational and said that the future negotiations will be led by senior U.S. officials. Details, however, of the framework remains limited. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.